So if you've tried to incorporate GarageBand into your online lessons or your socially distant lessons where you're using a screen to teach and you've come across a hitch to do with recording effectively into GarageBand, or if you're just curious about the idea of recording audio in your online lessons, in your video lessons, and you haven't thought of a convenient way to be able to do that, or you just haven't even thought of that idea at all, I hope you're going to love this training today. So what I'm going to take you through is something called Loopback. Loopback. L-O-O-P, back. Loopback. So that's the tool, and then we're using that in conjunction with GarageBand, which is a free app that you get pre-installed on any Mac or any iPad, as far as I'm aware. If you do have to pay a fee, it's just a small app fee. It's not a huge purchase. And you can use it on iPad or on a computer. I'm going to show you here on a computer because we're using it in conjunction with Loopback. So this is specifically a Mac training. However, if you're on a PC, or if you exclusively use an iPad maybe, although I think that would be tricky, if you're on a PC though, I'm sure there are alternative tools. So I'm hoping to give you the nuggets and ideas today so that you can take them and go, okay, look up what's the alternative to Loopback for PC, or what's the alternative to GarageBand for PC, that kind of thing. So these tools are really fantastic together, and there's something that I've been experimenting with in my group lessons. So I'm going to share with you how I'm doing that. However, this is not only applicable to group lessons, it can absolutely be used in other circumstances as well. The reason you need this thing called Loopback if you're going to do this, so the scenario we're imagining is that we have GarageBand open and we want to record something our student is playing over Zoom or Skype or whatever, Rocket Live maybe. They're playing that through a software, through our video call, and we want to record the audio directly into GarageBand. Now if you just press record in GarageBand and they play, what you will be recording is the audio coming out of the speakers and going back into your mic. And that's obviously not optimal, right? Because or if you're wearing headphones, you just won't hear anything at all because there won't be any sound. But even if you're recording it out the speakers, back, you can imagine how that's getting degraded. Does that make sense so far? So that's why we need something that can take the actual audio that your computer is receiving from your student and just pop that directly without the middleman of coming out into the atmosphere and back in, pop that directly into GarageBand or another recording software. So that's the idea. That's what I wanted to solve, and that's how I came across this tool called Loopback. So what Loopback does is exactly that. It creates a channel where it streams that into GarageBand. Streams is probably not the right word, but it takes that and flows it into GarageBand is really what I mean. Are you with me so far? Let me know if anything is unclear at all. The tool Loopback streams that through. I record it into GarageBand and that's where I can edit it. So the reason I wanted to do this was I wanted to have more opportunities to bring students together to actually create a recording in the group lessons that I've been doing. This was ideal for the group lessons that I do because I have been this year, they are grouped by age. I'm doing them online and they are grouped by age, which means that, yeah, they're not going to be way outside of levels of each other, but they're not going to be the same level. I mean, my youngest group, say, would be 5 to 8s. If one of them is 8 and they've been learning for 3 years or 4 years already, they're going to be quite a bit ahead of the beginners in that group. And so to be able to combine people effectively and not having my usual tools of duet and improvisation, this was another way to go. So there's 2 main ways I've been using that in group lessons. I've been, number 1, actually layering things, and I'll explain a bit more about that and layering different tracks in GarageBand and show you what that looks like. And number 2, I've been using them one after the other. So I would suggest starting with the second version if you're new to this and you are going to do it in a group lesson. Some other use cases though, If you're going to do this in solo lessons, it's a great option for simply recording your students' audio. If you don't want to have to take the Zoom recording, for example, afterwards and then, cut it down to just the part they were playing, and if you want to be able to record what your student is playing and play it straight back to them, which you can't really do easily in Zoom, this would be a great option for that. It also means that they can record a chunk of it, pause, do something else, figure out what the next bit is going to be, and record the next chunk. So you can see how that could be really useful if they're going to build up an improv or a composition, or if they want to record something and then add layers to it, add a drummer, add a guitarist underneath that, you can do that with them through Garageband. So there's so many ways you can do this. Let me first show you what Loopback looks like. So, this is the site, just so that you're familiar with it and you're not worried that you're in the wrong place, because I know that's a big factor for many of us. We're like, no, am I downloading something that's actually spam? This is where I downloaded it from. It's called Rogue Amoeba, so it might sound a bit dodgy, but what you need to Google is Loopback audio, because there's something called Loopback, which was some kind of coding thing. I don't know. It was irrelevant anyway. So you just search for Loopback audio and you'll come across this site, Rogue Amoeba, and that's where you can download it. There is a free version, and that's what I'm using, okay? So there's a free version which only allows you to record, I think it's up to 20 minutes, and I have never gone beyond that, right? So, because most of the time we wouldn't. And I completely understand the incentive to then go beyond that if I needed to. Like, I can see how that's a good model for them. It's not worth it to buy it for me for now, but I might in the future. Anyway, the free version is working great for me. So you just download it there and you install it. And then I'm going to show you what... Oh yeah, no, I need to open it up. Hang on a second. So I'm going to show you next what it actually looks like. The app itself, Loopback. It's maybe a bit weird looking, but it's also really quite simple. So the window you open once you've downloaded it will look something like this. And you can see how things are flowing through, right? So right now Google Chrome is not feeding through to it. If I turn that on, it will. And then that's the middleman where it's feeding through to Loopback. And then that's where it's putting out to. Okay? So when you want to, I actually deleted them for the purposes of showing you guys. When you want to add an application, you just need to have that application open. And then you can select it there. I'd say there's a chance that if you haven't, you might need to set extra permissions for that in some cases, but it may already be enabled by default. I'd say that'll just depend on your computer and the way you have it set up. But for me, I now have Zoom open. Just opened it up there for you guys to show you this. And you add it in there. There's one more thing you have to add, and that is the pass-through. So once you add the application you need, be it Zoom, Skype, whatever, and the pass-through, and then it's going through the channels and then it's coming out there, that's it. That's all I needed to really do. Now, there are really good tutorials on this, so if anything is unclear about it, and if you try to do this after this show here and it's not making sense, let me know, because I can put together a more polished step-by-step tutorial, like not recorded live, if anything is confusing. But I thought it was quite straightforward to put together, and that's it pretty much set up. Now, after the 20 minutes is up, the way they enforce that on you, I guess, that you would have to pay for the paid application if you run over, is that there's this like static sound. So if you leave it on by mistake, you'll just hear like a right, like an old TV, and all you need to do is just close it. So on Mac, yeah, you just right click on it and force close the application, or just close the application and the sound will go away. So if you try this and you hear that sound, that's all you've done. You've gone over the time limit and you just need to close it and the sound will go away. It's happened to me a few times where I've had the sound and no one has been bothered by it. Like the kids don't even notice what has happened. Only I do. And then I close it and that's the end. Right, so that's Loopback. Then the rest of everything you would do would be in Garageband. Okay? So I'll take you over to GarageBand now. And I've left open a track that I was creating with one of those really young beginner groups. So this is going to sound a bit mad. Let me just check that I'm... Oh, hang on. Okay, I can't share the system audio with you guys. So I don't think this will come through. You can probably hear that very faintly, but anyway, that is something that I recorded end to end. So it was based on a new prototype that we've been working on for VMT that I was trying out called Story Source. It is so fun. I cannot wait to share it with members. It's so super. It's coming out later this year, probably December, maybe January actually of next year. But it's a randomizer for creating stories together. So we created this story based on the characters in Story Source, and then different students recorded the different parts. So you can see the breaks there in GarageBand. That's where one student has recorded and the next one. Now let's say I wanted to record someone else here and I wanted to play at the same time. I would go to plus here in GarageBand and go to this one, the microphone. And then I would just press record, and then if I have Zoom open and someone is playing through Zoom, it will automatically pull that in. That's once you have loopback set up, it's really that simple. So it'll go, I warn that it's going to tick 4 times. Obviously there's no sound feeding through right now because, you know, nothing is happening. Can you guys see that little title there? The gorilla eats the library. That's what the story was about. It was a good one. Anyway, so that's how it works. It just records straight in. It's really easy to do. Now, some notes on that though are that it's not going to be in real time, as with everything in online lessons. So you record one student. Let's say you want to have one student play a C chord, and then the other student's going to record a C pentascale on top, just to give you a simple example, okay? You would have them as separate tracks like I just showed you, adding another track. But once you record one person in, then you record the next person in, you're going to need to adjust that. But here's the thing, it's pretty simple to do, because there's going to be a delay. Let me know if I'm explaining that correctly. I'm going to try and show you a little bit here. So let's say I had this one, and then I have the other student and they record this one. But when I record it in, it looks like that. Although the student thought they were playing that, you can see the sound, with that, right? So all I need to do is move it, basically. And if there's extra here, let's say it looks like that, which it would have originally, I just go to where I want to trim to, and I trim it. So that's Command T, or you can do that in the menu up the top. And then just delete that part. So you're going to want to, if you're going to do layers, that's why I suggest starting with something where it's one student, then the next, then the next. But if you're going to want to do layers, you just want to get used to trimming and moving stuff around. That would be the main thing that you need, the main skill that you need in terms of GarageBand to get started with that. Does that make sense? So I'm going to put that back where it was because it was obviously a masterpiece before. But that's basically how it works. It's really simple, and it's been so much fun to put these things together. So we've tried loads of different experiments. Sometimes I get one student to record, say, like I said, a C even, just C. Okay, I'm going to press record, and then after the ticks stop, I want you to play C for 4 beats. Or I want you to play C for 4 beats 4 times. Whatever you like. And then you can line it up with the bars in GarageBand and layer it. And then layer it with someone else's. Laurie, yes, exactly right. So it's sort of like they are recording into your GarageBand. So you screen share GarageBand and the kids can see their recording as they play it also. Yes, absolutely. And I tell them, okay, it's going to take 4 times and then it'll start. And sometimes they can't hear that all that clearly, so I always say as well, it'll also turn red. So once you see it red, you can just go ahead. Also, sometimes they don't start recording straight away and they say, "What? Can I go?" And I say, "Yes," and that all gets recorded in, right? And then I just delete that part and leave it as the part that they recorded. So I sometimes leave it recording quite a while and move it quite a while back. Does that make sense? So it's been really fun. You will need to get used to chopping and moving stuff around in GarageBand. That's the main tool you need. But like I said, start with that end-to-end one where you can just put the playhead, let me show you, put the playhead where the last one stops. So let's say I had another student who wanted to add on to this. I would put that there, that line, that's the playhead. And then when I press record, it's going to jump back 4 beats, count in, and then start recording there. Let me show you that. Okay, so it doesn't override this. And as I said, nothing's happening in Zoom, so it's not recording anything because that's what it's set up to record. And that's it. It's really that simple. So a musical story is a great way to start, and you can absolutely do this with one student at a time as well. And just have them record different parts of a composition. Yeah? Yes, Megan, it does remove that, but it also makes it a lot more collaborative and interactive in terms of the actual recording process. So as Laurie said, they can see that. And especially for my older group, they were saying, okay, so that's the shape of my sound. And I said, yeah, that's the sound waves. Like, that's what you're creating. You can see where it's... And they thought it was so cool that they can see where it's loud and soft and where the bits are. And yeah, they just think that's incredible. Now, another experiment we've been trying is layering on top of that some kind of word rhythms. So I have one of them say, oh, I started off, because this was a brand new experiment, I started off with boots and cats because I was like, okay, it'll sound like beatboxing kind of if I get them to do this. And I think it'll work. So that was my mad first experiment. So I got one kid to say boots. I recorded it and I think he said it like boots, right? It's boots. And then the other kid said cats. So it sounds like this, boots, cats, because I repeated them. And then I got them to choose words after that, and we recorded them. And I've been doing more of that where they choose the word, and you know, if they can't come up with anything, you say, okay, what's your favorite chocolate bar or something they can say rhythmically. They practice how they're going to say it, and one of them turned into something called cheesy toast cats, I think that's what we called it. Anyway, it was actually like the rhythm they created with these words. Yeah, it was a bit messy. It's a bit all over the place, right? But it sounds pretty cool and pretty convincing if you line things up correctly. So that's really the key. If you're going to record in a word, you need to be able to chop and trim that around. So let's say just that is the word boots. I take that and I'm going to put it there and say that is the word cats. It's not, it's a bunch of piano, but let's say it was. And I add a new track and I put that there, right? So what I would do is I would line this up with a beat. Let's trim that down a little bit more. Okay, I would line that up like that, and then I would just hold down Alt or Option on my keyboard and drag it along to duplicate it. I think you could probably also right click. Yeah, copy, see that? And then I would drag that to the next beat. So you can see the main beats there, and I would put that in between. So it's like, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. See, I'm lining them up. So I line them up to the beats. And as long as you really talk through that as you're doing it with your student, I think that's the key. Because then they're seeing what's happening and they're engaged in it and they are learning from it. So it's not just you faffing around in GarageBand. You're actually talking about, I'm going to line this up with beat 1, this one's going to go on beat 2. Or you ask them for their opinion. Do you think this should be every quaver, every crotchet? You know, how often should we put these in? Should this one be louder? Should this one be softer? Because you can just adjust the volume. That's just a slider right there. One other last tool that I'll show you in terms of Garageband, because I don't want it to be overwhelming. I want you to feel like you can do this, because you don't need to know all the things about Garageband to do this. One last thing that comes in very handy for this though is this, and that is just a looper. So you'll see the little arrow there. If you just drag when you're holding that, it means it loops that over and over. So that's really useful as well. Once you have the little chunk recorded in, you can just loop it over and over then. And that works up great. Caroline, is it difficult to line up if the students aren't on the exact tempo? So just to clarify as well what I said before, they won't be in time. There's no chance of that. If someone has played something and then they play along with it, because it's coming out of your computer, coming out of their speaker or headphones, and then they're playing back in, there's a delay, right? Now, hopefully they're in time so that when you slide it back, however much it works out to be, and you can see that visually, then the rest of it is in time. Okay? So, with that in mind, Caroline, the longer they play for, the harder it is going to be to line that up. If they're not particularly good, they don't have particularly good rhythm skills yet. So if you have beginners, I would get them to play one note and just loop it yourself, because that's going to be more accurate, or copy paste it on the beats, rather than getting them to play, for 4 bars. Because if they play for 4 bars and their rhythm is awful, you cannot line that back up. I shouldn't say awful, I mean inaccurate. It'll take you so long, and you could do it actually, but it'll just take you so long, and you're trying to do it live with the students watching you, so it would get a bit cumbersome. So that would be my advice on that. Yes! And that was going to be my next idea, Anna, so that's awesome. I'm going to share with you an idea that I think would be awesome for this, for a group, or in between lessons, but a group studio project, even if the students aren't together. So I'll get to that in a second. Laurie, so what would you press when you first start a new project? As far as instrument, microphone, I would press microphone. But yeah, just microphone. But even if you press the wrong one, if you just add a new track and make that the microphone, it won't matter that you have an extra track there. I do know what you mean. Yes, awesome. So what Anna mentioned there, I think, is a great point. I'm just going to turn off loopback, so hopefully we don't get that lovely static sound coming through. Now, so what Anna mentioned there is a great point. And I wanted to show you something I think would be really great to bring into this. So this is something I just put together in an online version for members this morning. So if you're not a member, you can get access to this and tons of other stuff by signing up. That's vibrantmusicteaching.com if you're not familiar. However, if you're already a member, you can get instant access to this. So what I've done is I've converted Spooky Sounds cards to this online version, and I've done it slightly differently to ways we've done it before. This is a new experiment I've been trying in secret and I think it's going to work really well. So this is the Spooky Sounds card page. Obviously, if you already have them printed out, you could totally just leaf through them and choose randomly yourself. However, I wanted a fun way to randomize things, and slides is never really random. You can't actually randomize it. You could sort of scroll up and down and stuff, but I thought, this is a great opportunity to try this. So what I've done is created a video. Members can download the video if you want to have it, open on your device separately, that's fine. Or you can just leave this page open. Both work equally well. Share your screen and share the app that it's open in. If it's on this, it'll be in your browser. And then go full screen with the video. Oh, it seems that my streaming software doesn't like that, so I'll show you small. Right, so what you do is you press play on the video, and you tell your student to say stop, and then wherever it stops, that's your randomly chosen card. Do you see how that works? So it's just a way of randomly flipping through cards. but it adds that element of pizzazz and fun, and I love it. So I'm really excited to use that with my students this week. And to Anna's point, I think that would be a great springboard for this kind of collaborative improv or composing project on a Halloween theme. So getting students to each record one little part in and then adding on in each student's lesson, I think would be awesome. So, Jane records this much and then it's Anna's lesson. So Anna, you play what Jane played for Anna, and then Anna comes up with the next bit based on her spooky sound card, and you keep going. And even if some of them get the same spooky sound card, that's fine, because, they'll do something different with it. And you could build up a story. I think it would be so, so cool. You could also use that just within one student's lesson, choose a few of those and either layer them. So, they get the minor chords and the diminished fifths and the chromatic scale, and you layer them on top of each other with the one student doing all the parts. Yes, I think it would be so, so much fun. Laurie, yes. Tricky to get it to line up perfectly. So if your student is super accurate and everyone has good internet, I will say that. If it glitches in the middle, it's going to record the glitching. Okay? But if you do have students who have stable internet, hopefully if you're in a city and stuff, that'll be fine. So you record in one student's part, exactly as you're saying, and then the next student will record it. Then you'll just need to move it back. It's normally about a beat and a half, depending on the delay, and record them together. But even if you didn't do that, just being able to record one student's duet part, then go to their duet partner and say, in Sophie's lesson, we recorded her part so that you can play along with it now. To you, it's not going to sound like the next student, Jason, is playing along with Sophie's part, but to Jason, it might, if he's already fairly established and can play along with something, that's a great experience. He knows Sophie actually recorded it. It's going to have those little slight micro errors in it that a real duet does, and you're going to have that experience of really playing with a live player, even though it's not live. No, Laura, you're not talking so much. It does. It opens up a whole new world. I love it. And I think if it's something you really get into, maybe the premium version is worth it. For me, 20 minutes has been enough, because we're going in and out, and, it's just a portion of a lesson. So for most of us, I think it would be plenty. So I'm so excited you guys are excited about this idea. I've been experimenting with it, as I said, in my group workshops since the start of this year. So 6-7 weeks now, what is it, 10 or 12 group workshops I've tried this in as a test run, and I'm trying different things every time. I'm just messing around with it. It'll get easier and easier over time. So don't worry if it's not seamless at first. Have a laugh with it. Just have fun. Enjoy it. The main tips I would say from me to warnings, I guess I would give you, are make sure you're comfortable with cutting and moving stuff around in Garageband, because that's the essential skill. Okay? That and adding new tracks are the only thing you really need. And just write a post-it note. If I hear annoying static sound, it means I need to close Loopback. Because that's, if you're in an online lesson, you might go, oh my god, what's that sound? And panic and think everything's gone wrong with the world. But it hasn't. It's just Loopback trying to get you to buy the premium version, that's all. Okay, so any further questions on that, let me know. I wanted to show you as well our new course. Are you ready? Have you seen this yet, members who are live? So our new course is called Creativizing Classics. And this is something I've wanted to create for ages, so I was really excited to be able to put it into the calendar and get it out there for you guys. So this one is available in the video library, as usual with courses. And it's called Creativizing Classics, so you can see it right here. Okay, and you just watch the videos, download the lesson plan, everything is there for you, ready to go. What this is, though, it's quite a different style. Oh my gosh, it's a lot to unpack, I guess, right here, so I'm not going to do that. But I would just encourage you members to check it out. What Creativizing the Classics is all about, it's about taking classical pieces, taking any piece, but particularly classical pieces, because they're the ones that we maybe still are teaching traditionally, and they can feel very stuck in the mud, but there's no reason for them to be, because Bach and Beethoven and everyone we know, they were improvising. They weren't just staring at a piece of music and decoding everything. And improvising with that stuff can actually help you with the decoding anyway. So this course is all about taking elements from those scores and doing creative activities with them, which saves you lesson time, because you're not thinking, okay, now I have to fit in my improv section, and now I've got my scales, and now I've got my reading work, and then I listen to the new pieces, right? It's counterproductive. If you try and do things that way, they won't fit. Even if you have 45-minute lessons, even if you have hour lessons, they won't fit in. Whereas if you integrate these things, and this comes back to things like Paul Harris's work on simultaneous learning, great to look into if you haven't already read his books or any of his work on that. It's a similar idea. This is my different take on it, and it's all about pulling these pieces apart and gaining everything we can from them and using them to get creative, and therefore making them easier to learn, right? So it's this symbiotic relationship between creativity and the reading work, the nuts and bolts stuff that we want to do. So it is an interesting course in the structure, because it's all about this one framework. And then what I've done is I've given you different examples at different levels. So there's, a sort of late beginner, early late beginner, is that a thing? Level, like a pre-grade 1 level. And then it goes through, and the last piece we look at is at a much more advanced level. I mean, not advanced, like a late intermediate, so that you can see that this is about all pieces. And I haven't given you that so that you can take those pieces, although I've included the sheet music, and you're free to print them as many billion times as you want, because they are fully created by me, they're not under copyright, so you can do that. But the main point is you can see through my process of breaking down those pieces how you would do this to any piece. Anything. Okay? So that is inside the library. If you're not a member, you need to sign up to get access. If you're a member already, you just jump over to the video library and it's right there. And in the printable library, you'll look for the spooky sound cards, because they now have that online option, which is going to be so fun to do. We have 1 week left of lessons over here, because Halloween is a real holiday for us. It is for a lot of people now, but it is an Irish holiday, actually. It's Samhain. So it's a pretty big deal here. It always has been, and it's one of our midterm breaks is around Halloween. So next week we'll actually be off here in the studio, so I have just this week to use the spooky sound cards. So I don't teach on Monday, so I was like, no, I'm going to get them put together, because our members can use them for 2 weeks if they are teaching next week, and I can use them this week, and everyone can get some spooky, chromatic and minory fun into their lessons. So I hope you'll check out both those things. Next week, we're going to be talking about 5 tricks for improvising in your online lessons. So I'm going to share with you 5 tweaks and tricks that make improvisation possible, even with beginners, in online lessons. We all know it's frustrating to not be able to just sit beside your student and improvise with them. And I'm going to be honest with you, without wanting to rub it in anyone's face, I have been able to teach in person the last 6 or 7 weeks, and that is the thing that when we were able to improvise together again, I mean, it gave me shivers, because I was like, oh my god, this feels so much better. Like, it's a feeling like no other. And I'm not going to tell you that I can give you that experience in your online lessons. It just won't happen. I can give you a different experience that is also fantastic. So I'm going to give you 5 tricks for that next week here on the show. The next day after that, we're going to have a webinar about finding time for creativity in your music lessons. So that is at vibrantmusicteaching.com/creativity. If you want to sign up for that, or if you're a member, you can catch the replay, of course, afterwards, anytime inside the library. And last little note for you guys is that if you haven't filled out the survey, I would so appreciate it if you would do it. We've talked recently about why this is so important, how this can help teachers like you, all teachers, to fight imposter syndrome, to feel part of a global community, to feel empowered to raise their rates, to feel empowered to act like a professional, and we can raise up our whole industry. We've already blown last year's figure out of the water, but I want to do even better. I want as many responses as possible. And if you didn't see it last year, we put together a fantastic report with this data, making it digestible and understandable for you, with pretty graphs and details and pulled out figures so that it really talks to you and it tells you something about the state of our industry and where it's going. This has been something that I feel like we've needed for a long time, and I was happy to take on the challenge of putting it together, and it's going to get better every year. So this is the second year we're doing it. We're going to do it every year, and I would so appreciate you filling in the survey. And on top of all that, it only takes 11 minutes. 11. The survey software shows me how long it takes. 11 minutes. That's the time it takes to complete, okay? You can spare 11 minutes for the good of us all, can't you? I'm sure you can. Okay, so hop on over to colourfulkeys.ie/survey to fill that in. Before I go, Deborah had a question. What was the classics improv program called? It's called Creativizing Classics. You can find it in the video library, Deborah. So just go to the video library. It's up there in the top row since it's a new resource. So it's very easy to find. And I hope you love it. Thank you all so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure. It's been a bright spark in my day as I wait for news about our latest COVID lockdown, which is going to come my way, I'm guessing, in about 2 hours. So that's on the way, but I've really enjoyed spending time with you, and I'll be back here next week to talk about improv and all the fun things. Thank you all, and see you next time.